So imagine watching a toddler, like happily jogging, right toward the edge of a sheer, jagged cliff.
Oh, that is terrifying, just the thought of it.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't whisper politely to them. You would send a nicely worded text message.
No, you would scream, you'd probably sprint and just tackle them to the ground.
Exactly. You'd do whatever it takes. And welcome to today's sermon reflection, where our mission is to figure out why the hardest, most devastatingly painful moments of your life might actually be God tackling you to keep you away from the edge.
Yeah, and to really understand that dynamic, we need to look at the text today's sermon is based on, which is Jeremiah chapter 24.
Yeah, Jeremiah.
Right. And we have to look at the historical figure driving this text. He's, famously known as the weeping prophet.
Which sounds so intense.
It is. But what the sermon points out is that he wasn't crying just out of general sadness or clinical depression. He was experiencing the exact desperation of that parent at the cliff.
Because he's watching the southern kingdom of Judah basically walk blindly toward total destruction.
Right. He's yelling, "Stop, turn around, the cliff is right there," and they are just casually ignoring him.
I mean, that has to be so deeply frustrating.
Oh, completely. And the fascinating part is how the sermon connects that very human parental desperation directly to the nature of the Holy Spirit.
Right, from Romans 8, right?
Exactly, Romans 8:26. It describes the Spirit interceding for us with groanings too deep for words.
Wow.
So when you are walking toward your own cliff, ignoring red flags, making self-destructive choices, or maybe you're just failing so profoundly you feel numb and don't even want to pray, the Holy Spirit is experiencing that same weeping, desperate intercession for you.
Wait, let's pause there for a second, because if I'm listening to this right now, I might be thinking, okay, great, God is crying for me. But, I still feel completely isolated in my mess.
Sure, that's a natural reaction.
So what is the actual practical takeaway of having a divine parent groaning for you in the background?
Well, the practical reality is that you are never operating in a vacuum. I mean, you might feel isolated in your hardship, but as a believer, you have a divine advocate who is eternally rooting for you.
Right.
Think about earthly parents. They eventually leave us, or, their ability to protect us reaches its physical limit. But this divine presence, it doesn't have a limit.
Which sounds incredibly comforting until you run into a massive glaring roadblock.
Yeah.
Because if God cares for us with this fierce, protective parental love, why does he let us fall into situations that feel absolutely devastating? Why does the loving parent let the child experience trauma at all?
Right. And that friction is exactly what today's sermon addresses next. And it does so through a bizarre vision that Jeremiah receives during, honestly, one of the most traumatic moments in ancient history.
Okay, let's set the historical stage here, because the context is wild.
It really is.
The year is 597 BC. And King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon has just invaded Jerusalem. Now, the city isn't completely leveled yet. I think that final destruction happens about 10 years later.
Yeah.
But he has already deported King Jeconiah, the high officials, the master craftsmen.
Basically the entire leadership class.
Exactly. He's dragged them away from their generational wealth and their homes into exile in a pagan land.
And in the middle of this massive national panic, God gives Jeremiah a vision.
Right.
He sees 2 baskets of figs sitting outside the temple. One basket is full of these magnificent, perfectly ripe, excellent figs.
Okay.
And the other basket is entirely full of putrid, rotting, completely inedible figs.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I need to push back on what happens next.
Go for it.
God's explanation of these baskets is completely backward to how we naturally think.
Totally backward.
Because God tells Jeremiah that the good figs, the excellent ones, are the exiles, the people who literally just lost everything.
Right.
The ones who got marched hundreds of miles into Babylon and are about to face things like fiery furnaces and the lion's den.
Exactly.
And then the bad figs are King Zedekiah and the people who got to stay comfortably behind in Jerusalem.
I know. You really have to look at the psychological reality of the people who stayed in Jerusalem to understand this.
I mean, by every earthly metric, they thought they had won the lottery.
Exactly. The Babylonian invasion created this massive power vacuum. So the people left behind suddenly had access to abandoned estates, new political power, and they still had the comfort of worshiping at their own temple.
So they felt incredibly blessed.
Oh, highly favored. Without a doubt.
Which makes sense. I mean, if I'm living back then, I'm absolutely looking at the exiles and thinking, God is judging them.
Right.
And I'm looking at the people who stayed in Jerusalem and thinking, wow, they are the lucky ones. They have the money, the houses, the religious status.
Yeah, from a worldly perspective, they had it all.
So how does this completely flip our modern idea of what God's blessing looks like? Because we basically equate comfort with blessing today. Like, if life is easy, God is smiling.
What's fascinating here is how the sermon dissects this oxymoron of faith. We just naturally operate on the assumption that trusting God should yield a better, healthier, wealthier, and easier life than someone who doesn't believe.
Right. The whole prosperity mindset.
Exactly. But the mechanics of spiritual growth dictate the exact opposite. I mean, think about why Jerusalem caused spiritual rot.
Unchecked comfort.
Yes. Unchecked comfort breeds complacency. The people who stay behind absorbed the illusion that they were in control. They didn't need faith. They had real estate and political leverage.
Wow. Okay, so the bad figs were bad because their comfort masked their distance from God.
Exactly.
But what about the exiles? Why did Babylon produce faith? Getting dragged to a foreign country and thrown into a furnace doesn't automatically make someone holy.
No, it doesn't.
Like, I know people who go through tragedy and just become incredibly bitter.
Oh, totally. But for the believers, it's about the stripping away of false idols. The intense friction of Babylon, the sheer desperation of having no temple, no king, and no home. It forced the exiles to rely on God himself rather than all the trappings of their religion.
Ah, I see.
They had to figure out how to pray without a temple. I mean, think about believers today. Unbelievers might claw their way to the top of a corporate ladder by stepping on others or cutting ethical corners.
Sure.
But a believer might endure financial loss, or miss out on a massive promotion, or face forced patience specifically because their ethics won't let them take that shortcut.
And by worldly standards, the believer looks like the loser in that scenario.
Yeah.
They look like they're in exile. And honestly, this unfair reality makes a lot of people want to step back from their faith entirely.
Yeah, it's a huge stumbling block.
I mean, if I'm a good fig and my reward is getting dragged off to Babylon while the bad figs get rich in Jerusalem, I'm going to wonder if God is even there.
Yeah.
Why does God treat his own people with such severity?
Well, to understand that severity, we really have to examine the psychology of how we approach God with our desires.
Okay.
Today's sermon points out that we have a massive tendency to treat God like a genie in a magic lamp.
Oh, 100%.
Or to use a cultural parallel from the notes, like an ancestor spirit we try to appease with a bowl of water in the backyard so they'll grant us good fortune.
The magic lamp mentality. Just look at our standard prayer requests.
Yeah.
We ask for the successful business, the perfect health, the A on the exam, the flawless spouse. We essentially just hand God a customized grocery list.
And the deeper issue with those genie prayers is what they reveal about our need for control. When we pray like that, we are essentially declaring that we are the masters of our own lives.
Yeah.
We do the math, we build the 5-year plan, we decide what the perfect outcome is, and then we just expect God to act as a supernatural intern who executes our brilliant strategy.
A supernatural intern. That's so accurate.
Right. And this is the precise idolatry Jeremiah was warning Judah about. We worship our own plans.
So what does this all mean for the listener who is just trying to live a responsible life?
Well, the sermon introduces this metaphor from John 15, where God is the vine dresser, the master gardener.
Okay, yeah.
If you hire a master gardener to tend your orchard, you don't panic when they bring out the shears. You know they have to cut branches to redirect nutrients and get better fruit.
Let me push back a bit, though.
Sure.
If I hire a gardener, I'm still the boss. In this scenario, God is the gardener, and I'm the plant getting sliced open, and the shears hurt.
Well, they do hurt. They
Yeah.
absolutely do. But the critical mechanism in John 15 is that God doesn't bother pruning the branches that aren't his.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he just cuts off the dead branches entirely.
Yeah.
He only prunes the living, fruit-bearing branches. The painful cutting, the removal of things you thought you needed is the proof that you actually belong to him.
Wow. And the sermon connects this to Hebrews 12, talking about legitimate children. Right?
Yes. Suffering and discipline are proof that we are God's legitimate children.
Because parents only discipline their own kids.
Mm-hmm.
You don't jump the fence to ground the neighbor's kid for acting out.
No, you let them be. You only invest that kind of agonizing, emotionally taxing disciplinary energy into the child you are responsible for and deeply love.
Right.
You enforce boundaries because you care about the adult they will become.
I understand the logic.
Yeah.
I really do. The hardship isn't a lack of love. It's the fiercest expression of it.
Exactly.
But let's be real. If you are listening to this right now and your business just went bankrupt or your health is failing, hearing God is just parenting you can feel incredibly dismissive.
Of course.
Because knowing it's a pruning process doesn't stop the immediate bleeding. If I'm in the fire right now, How am I actually supposed to survive the shears?
It's so hard, but the sermon outlines 3 specific mechanisms, comforts, really, for surviving this kind of exile.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is understanding that the suffering is temporary and bearable. Yes, in Jeremiah's time, God explicitly stated the Babylonian exile would last 70 years. Now, to a human, 70 years sounds like a permanent sentence. But in the grand scheme of a nation's history, it's a defined, limited window.
And there's also 1 Corinthians 10:13, which promises that God won't give us a trial we cannot endure.
Right?
But, temporary is a really tough pill to swallow when you're in day 2 of a crisis.
Absolutely.
Though I do want to bring up that linguistic point from the sermon regarding the Korean language. I thought that was amazing.
Oh, yes. The word for affliction or adversity.
And when you read the characters backward, it becomes the word for experience or career.
That is just a brilliant way to conceptualize the utility of suffering.
Totally.
It isn't just random, chaotic pain inflicted by an indifferent universe. It is actively building your spiritual resume. You are gaining the specific required experience to handle the weight of whatever God is preparing for your future.
But again, knowing it's for my resume doesn't make the pain go away today. So what is the immediate survival mechanism when I'm overwhelmed right now?
And that leads to the second comfort.
Yeah.
You are being watched with microscopic attention.
Okay.
In Jeremiah 24:6, God says, "I will set my eyes on them for good." And Zechariah 2:8 pushes the imagery further, saying, "He who touches you touches the apple of his eye."
Right. And we throw around apple of my eye as this cute phrase for someone's favorite person.
You do.
But the sermon breaks down the actual anatomy of that phrase, and it changes everything.
Yes, the apple refers to the pupil, and the human pupil is one of the most hypersensitive, heavily guarded biological mechanisms we possess.
Yeah.
Think about the corneal reflex. If a tiny speck of dust or even just a sudden gust of wind comes near your eyelid snaps shut instantaneously.
It bypasses conscious thought entirely.
Exactly. And God is using that specific anatomical reality to describe his protective reflex over you. When you are in the middle of suffering, he is hypersensitive to your protection.
I picture it almost like a brutally difficult video game.
Ooh, I like that.
You're facing this insane boss battle, the exile, the pruning, and it feels impossible. But knowing the programmer is watching your every single input, fiercely guarding the parameters so the game doesn't glitch and destroy you, that changes how you play.
That's a great way to look at it.
Surviving that closely guarded suffering is how your trust in God essentially levels up.
And that leveled up trust is the necessary bridge to the third, and frankly, the most important benefit of suffering.
Which is?
It's the ultimate goal of the exile. Jeremiah 24:7 identifies it as finally having a heart to know the Lord.
Not just knowing facts about him.
Right. Not facts, but fundamentally knowing him as Lord.
Wow.
Because when we face profound suffering, what is the first casualty?
Our plans.
Exactly. Our illusions of control. All those meticulously crafted 5-year plans and desired outcomes we used to treat God like a genie are just shattered by the reality of our powerlessness.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the sermon brings up the Michelangelo analogy here. But we need to look at how that actually works.
Right.
We've all heard the cliche. Michelangelo looks at a block of marble, sees the sculpture inside, and just chips away what isn't the sculpture.
Sure, we all know that one.
But think about the physics of chiseling. We spend our entire adult lives trying to build this massive, comfortable block of marble.
Oh, yes, we do.
We pad our bank accounts, curate our careers, arrange our perfect little predictable routines. We love our block of marble.
And then God steps in as the sculptor.
And he doesn't just smash it with a sledgehammer in a blind rage. That's demolition, not sculpting.
Right, it's intentional.
Chiseling is agonizingly precise. He takes a sharp tool and intentionally strikes away pieces of our lives, pieces of our marble that we thought were absolutely essential.
He removes the comfort.
Yeah, he removes the false security. The friction of the chisel hurts, but it is deeply purposeful.
Because the purpose is to reveal the true masterpiece hidden underneath the excess stone.
Right.
When all our personal plans and worldly comforts are stripped away, what remains? The character of Jesus Christ living within the believer.
Wow.
I mean, the ultimate goal of the Christian life was never to achieve a perfectly comfortable earthly existence. It was to be transformed into the image of Christ.
Okay, practically speaking, how does a listener apply this tomorrow morning?
Wow.
Because we still have mortgages to pay, medical tests to take, and relationships to navigate, we still have to pray for things. We can't just flip a switch and stop having human desires.
No, of course not. You don't stop having desires. You just change the vocabulary and the posture of your prayers.
Okay.
Today's sermon challenges the listener to append a specific condition to every request. Instead of demanding the promotion or the healed relationship as a right, we add, if the Lord wills.
Like the notes mention, the Latin phrase Deo volente, abbreviated as DV or just Lord willing LW.
Exactly. It's a shift from demanding to surrendering.
Yeah.
You bring the desire, but you hand over the final call to his wisdom.
But the true test of spiritual maturity, honestly, is the second half of that prayer.
Oh, definitely.
It's praying, Lord willing, grant me this desire, but if you do not will it, help me to still believe in you. Help me to be thankful, trusting that you have a better plan.
That is incredibly heavy.
Preemptively accepting a no from God with gratitude because you trust the master gardener with the shears. That is a level of trust that only comes from surviving the chisel.
It requires profound trust, but it is the exact path God charted for his own son.
Right.
The sermon's conclusion ties this all together through the life of Jesus. I mean, God pushed Jesus into the wilderness to endure temptation and starvation.
Yeah.
He ultimately led Jesus to the unimaginable physical and spiritual suffering of the cross.
But look at the mechanism of that suffering.
Right. Jesus was like a single seed that had to fall to the ground and die. And through that death, the seed germinated and grew into a massive tree of life that offers salvation to humanity.
That's beautiful.
So if God is leading you into a season of pruning or a painful exile, he isn't abandoning you. He is leading you down the exact same path he led Jesus.
So let's synthesize this sermon reflection. If you are in a season of hardship right now, feeling the shears, remember what we've unpacked from the notes.
Yes.
First, your suffering isn't forever. It is temporary, and it's actively building your spiritual resume.
Exactly.
Second, you are not out of sight. God is guarding you with the instinctive, hypersensitive reflex of a pupil reacting to a speck of dust.
He sees you.
And third, your perfectly crafted plans are being precisely chiseled away for a reason so you can finally truly know God as the Lord of your life, not just a cosmic genie.
Because the suffering isn't a punishment reserved for the bad figs. It is the refining fire reserved specifically for the good ones.
So next time you find yourself standing on the edge of what feels like a cliff,
Yeah.
when your flawless 5-year plan falls apart and you feel like you've just been handed a basket of putrid, inedible figs, take a breath.
Just breathe.
Ask yourself, are you actually being punished? Or is the master gardener finally picking up his chisel to keep you from walking off the edge, ready to reveal the masterpiece he always knew was inside you?